Welcome to the FCICA product webinar series. We are pleased to have Will White of CustomTech with us today. Will, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Will White. I'm with Custom Building Products. I'm the Director of Technical Communications and Training. I've been with the company almost 10 years now, and prior to Custom, I spent many of days out in the field installing floor coverings, just like most of you online are currently doing. So this presentation will be from a manufacturer's and a contractor's perspective. So thank you all for joining, and let me begin. So what we're trying to talk about today is preparation versus repair. The two different scopes on the job, where does that change? How does that affect my contract? Or more importantly, how does that affect my paycheck? So we want to cover some of the organizations that determine the floor requirements in order to create the separation between prep versus repair. We're going to talk about some contract language suggestions that help set expectations and create the division between the two scopes. Explanation of the tolerances included in the standards, and then we're going to cover some of our surface preparation materials that we offer. So every day, we all deal with a multitude of challenges on the job. While a lot of the jobs may seem similar from a blueprint perspective, we know that each job is individual to itself and has challenges that have to be overcome to get a proper installation completed. So a lot of the flooring materials have requirements or tolerances. Not a lot, every single one of them do, established by organizations through and with the manufacturers of those materials. So it's the responsibility of the dealer or the contractor to determine what is repair and what is prep so that expectations are set and division can be created. Because quite often, most of us include some surface prep into our estimates, into our yardage or square footage. So where does that break? Because the standards clearly state that the flooring should be, the substrate should be ready to receive the flooring material once we arrive. But we understand that we're going to have to do some minor surface prep. So how do you view floor preparation? Would it include minor patching, scraping, sweeping, vacuuming up materials to ensure a proper bond of the adhesive? So for whatever reason, we've all included a certain amount of floor prep to a given degree, and once we arrive to the project, we're expected to cover the prep and the repair without blinking an eye or a change order to create an additional scope. Because we know that every job requires some amount of surface prep, and we can never just walk onto the project and install the flooring. So the headaches begin, and we have to have the conversations what surface prep means and what surface repair means. Because we know that with our flooring materials, especially thinner materials, vinyl, plank, tiles, they will show every irregularity in the surface once we've installed them, which won't be acceptable for the obvious reasons. But the key is to create that division between what's included in way of surface prep and where the repair begins so that we don't have to do the work without getting compensated for it. So how do you include, or do you include, that surface prep? As a former contractor, we used to include simple things like an hour of labor, a bag of material for every 100 yards of material installed. But it was typically never absolutely defined because once we arrived to the project, the general contractor expected us to cover everything without asking for more money. So, have we added to the confusion over the years with this approach? Very possible. So where does the change happen from surface preparation to surface or substrate repair? So I want to give a special acknowledgement to Louis Migliori with LGM and Associates. He wrote a great article, and that's kind of been part of the conversation here, along with my past experiences and all the current experiences that contractors that we deal with every day are experiencing on projects out there from that change from surface prep to substrate repair. So what we'd like to do now is let's go into the industry organizations that can help you in your contract language create that separation between preparation and repair. They also cover testing and guidelines for installation methods. So first, let's talk about the tile industry. The tile industry subscribes to the American National Standards Institute, or ANSI. But we're also tied to the concrete industry for the obvious reasons. We install over it every day. So for repair, the ICRI would be an industry organization that offers installation guidelines and methodology as well for repair, not preparation. The American Concrete Institute is involved. They establish the original designs as well as installation criterias, and they have references and standards for flooring materials over the concrete slabs. So one of the first standards we want to talk about specifically is ACI 117. This is where it all begins on paper with the designer, with the engineers, to determine how flat a concrete floor needs to be based on intended use of the areas, so that the engineers, the architects can prescribe that in the specification, and the concrete contractors can bid on it and execute to that flatness based on the use intended. Also involved is the American Society for Testing and Materials, or ASTM. They have exact language to ACI 117, and for resilient flooring, they have ASTM F710. So this establishes flatness tolerances or requirements for resilient floor covering to be installed over concrete surfaces or any surface. So under a 10-foot straight edge in ASTM F710, the latest version is 2017, and if you want, you can purchase that on ASTM.org. But in section 4.6, it talks about being flat within 3/16 of an inch and 10 feet under that 10-foot straight edge from the highest point in the surface of the concrete slab. This specification was written initially in 2005 for the Richmond County Judicial Center in Augusta, Georgia. And here you can see that it utilizes ASTM E1155, which is floor flatness, which is the same language as ACI 117. And then it also references ASTM F710, so we know that there's resilient flooring material being installed here. So it talks about flatness there. And then it continues to talk about relative humidity requirements using ASTM F2170 and also 1869, which is the calcium chloride test methods utilized for moisture testing. So E1155 is ASTM's version of ACI. The reason for that is because ACI is for the concrete industry, the ASTM E1155 is for the flooring industry, so that it crosses over and can help you in your contract documents establish flatness tolerances, and that will impact prep versus repair most certainly. So, flat or level, what's the goal? Because we know about self-leveling underlayments, we know about FF for floor flatness, we also know about FL for floor levelness. So what is the goal typically on a flooring installation? Well, it's flat, it's not level. Level requires more material, costs more money, and quite often, from elevation perspectives, cannot be executed. So the floor flatness contained in 1155 and 117 shows you that levelness can be determined by strike-off using laser screeds, etc., while flatness is executed in the finishing stages during the original concrete placement. Then, within 3 days, they can execute an evaluation to determine if the concrete company met the FF numbers in the architectural specifications. This particular unit is a dipstick. It takes measurements every 12 inches across a grid of the concrete slab. This thing costs about $9,000, so a little bit costly in way of equipment necessary. Now, floor flatness tolerances historically were 1/4 inch and 10 feet for a number of years, especially for tile. Now, what we measure specifically is the gap under straight edge. There's a lot of confusion from a general contractor perspective about the gap under the straight edge and how it is exactly measured. But again, that's from the highest point in the concrete surface where the installation is to take place. So for FF, place the concrete day 1, evaluate on day 3. Now, you can expedite the process by using a rolling profilometer, which you can see here. There are a number of others available out there, but it does make the process much faster. So let's dig into the minutia just a little deeper so we can better understand how this can help our prep versus repair scenario and what is exactly allowable and how it happens. So for a conventional slab, your FF numbers would be a 20 with your overall levelness being a 15. This chart you're seeing now is directly out of the American Concrete Institute's 302, which is utilized in virtually every project for the concrete design and methodology. Now, as we dig deeper, we can see that the F25 is typically what's specified for spaces that are going to utilize carpet as a finish. The reason for that is because it's expected or intended or understood that the carpet being utilized will be installed over a cushion, which will allow for variations without telegraphing to the final surface finish of the carpet, which means the pad under the carpet will take up the variations or waviness in the concrete slab. Now, if you look down to the next line, you'll see that thin-set tile applications will require a flatter surface, which is a 30 to a 35. And then when we get into movie television studios, that's an FF of 50. What we don't see here is we don't see resilient flooring here, outlined in 302. So there's a bit of a gap there that needs to be closed from a technical committee perspective. Now let's begin to take the FFs and let's correlate them with gap under straight edge. This table is also directly out of 302. Now you can see that a conventional floor of 20 will give you a little more than 1/2 inch in variation potential, whereas a super flat will give you an 1/8 inch in 10 feet. Correct? Okay, so we specify the super flat. We pay the extra money to the concrete companies to execute. But then what happens after day 3? They've evaluated the slab. It met the specs per ASTM E1155 and ACI 117. But now we still have to deal with the concrete losing moisture, which ACI fully expects and understands. You can see here, this is a chart out of ACI 117, which clearly states that at 6 months, we can see a 3/4 inch downward movement on interior panels or slabs. And here we can see deflection up to 24 months later, expected up to over an inch. That's downward movement. Now that can create some very potential failures in flooring finishes. So the concrete industry knows that the concrete is going to change, it's going to shrink, and it's going to affect that floor flatness that may have been absolutely perfect on day 3 after the concrete companies executed it. And that's because concrete will change mass based on the water loss. There's additional water used in concrete placement. It's necessary. It's referred to as the water of convenience. That water of convenience is not utilized by the cement molecular development during hydration, so it has only one place to go, and that is to leave the slab. And when it does, that mass will change. Factor in weather conditions, heat, wind, etc. That will also have a major impact on days 4 through 28 and beyond in way of the final flatness of the concrete substrate. Now you're looking at the American Society of Concrete Contractors. This document is an excellent resource to use in your contract language and any conversations that you may have. The reason it's such an excellent document, and I believe we have that as a potential download as a resource from this webinar. If not, you can find it online. The reason it's so valuable is because it has the American Society of Concrete Contractors. It has the FCICA's endorsement. It has the National Tile Contractors Association, the NWFA, or the National Wood Flooring Association, along with the IMI, BAC, and the TCAA. These are all the unions, all endorsing this particular position statement, which talks about Division 3 concrete versus Division 9 floor finishes, and specific the floor flatness tolerances. And you'll see in this particular statement from that position statement that all these organizations suggest that the owner provides a bid allowance, a money, a budget set aside, which was established by the architect or engineer, which was based on the floor coverings requirements, the floor covering that the owner selected for any necessary grinding or patching or leveling to close the gap between what was on Division 3 and what is today when Division 9 is trying to install over a concrete slab. Providing that separate allowance or budget enables the owner to compare floor covering bids on an equal basis. That's where the confusion of including a certain amount of prep or repair can create a division between equal bids. So any unused allowance or money obviously is returned to the owner. So this position statement has been out for 10 years now. So the message is still working its way through our collective industries, but can definitely be utilized as a resource. Now, moving back to ANSI, we also have the TC&A for the tile side. So we have ANSI and TC&A. What does the wood flooring side say? The wood flooring, the NWFA, states in their installation guide that the allowable variations are 1/8 to 3/16 of an inch, but defer to the manufacturers of the wood plank for final say and requirements, which most prescribe 1/8 of an inch and 10 feet. So now we have resilient and wood all in that same range. What about tile? Tile requires 1/8 of an inch and 10 feet when you have a tile that's larger than 15 inches on any one side. The most common size tile that's installed today is a 12 by 24. So now we have wood, we have resilient, we have tile, all hovering in that 1/8 of an inch and 10 feet. So utilize that position statement 6. Have the conversations early to set the expectations. Include the ANSI and ASTM standards in your contract submittals that will help establish floor flatness tolerances, and specify a single source system when possible. And the reason we suggest that is so that the materials that you're utilizing to repair or prepare are all compatible with one another, And then also that should put you in a position to get a complete system warranty from the manufacturer of the repair materials. So briefly now, I'm going to talk about our CustomTech systems. We've had this particular brand out for several years. Custom Building Products has been in the business of self-leveling underlayments for over 20 years now. So we have launched CustomTech in specific to the overall flooring industry needs. And we did this with a group of contractors that we still consult and utilize today for product development. That is our Platinum Advisors group. So let's talk about moisture. For moisture situations, after you've gone to the ICRI moisture testing certification class, which is excellent, by the way. I attended that myself and got my certification several years ago. Now you know you have a moisture situation, and you can utilize our two-part epoxy system called Tech MVC, or Moisture Vapor Control System. This is a single coat system, and it's different because it requires a thinner mill build to treat the concrete slab. Now it can treat a slab that's exhibiting up to 25 pounds of vapor emission per ASTM F1869 or calcium chloride test. It can also manage up to 100% relative humidity. That's ASTM 2170. And it can also manage up to a pH of 14, which is the top of the scale. Also, we've included a red pigment. That is for the contractor's benefit to ensure proper coverage. And what we all know, on every job, we've got the best lighting conditions possible. So this will actually assist the applicator in ensuring a proper coverage. Let's go into our leveler offerings. The goal here, based on new technology advancements in polymer technology in specific, is clean, prime, and pour. Our first offering, when you need a deep fill material, up to 3 inches thick in a single placement, neat out of the bag, add water only, we offer our Tech Level 125. This will give you over 4,000 PSI and will help to hold in place as you're moving that material. Other levelers that are designed for lower lift applications have a bit more of a flow tendency. We've intentionally held back or restrained the flow on the 125 so that you can build on site and it'll stay or hold in place much easier, allowing that deeper build to take place more efficiently. Our everyday self-leveler, kind of like your Ford F-150, if you will, is our Tech Level 150. TL150 is your everyday user, over 4,300 PSI, and this guy will go from a relative 0 up to 1.5 inches thick. So this is what I would have in my shop, in my warehouse, and on my job for most of my projects. Moving into a early entry system, or go early, is our Tech Level XP1. This guy is designed to go up to 2 inches thick in a single application, but that's not the big advantage of this tool. The big advantage of this tool is the fact that it's designed for extended traffic over it, meaning we can place it early before walls are built and have the general contractor do the TI over it, and months later come back and install the floor covering without degradation of that leveler compound. It also gives you over 5,500 PSI. So when you've got a 5K spec for a self-leveling underlayment, this is your go-to, our XP1. Now, we talked about advancements in polymer technology. We've had definite advancement in cement rheology as well. So when we talk about going over wood subfloors, we know for years we've been able to go over it with a self-leveling underlayment when we incorporated a metal or a plastic lath bonded to that plywood subfloor. Well, we know that that's a lot of fun to install the lath, So we've introduced a fiber reinforced quality modified tech level WSF or wood subfloor. This self-leveling underlayment only requires the primer first, and then you can pour directly over not just plywood, but OSB as well. And you can take it from a relative 0, but we require 1/4 of an inch over plywood with no lath, up to 1.5 inches. So when you're doing builder work or you're doing mixed-use, multi-tenant, this is an excellent tool for your project. Also, some of the benefits, if you use radiant uncoupling mats, we can take our WSF and put it right into the radiant uncoupling mat with no primer necessary. This is because of those polymer advancements and the rheological modifiers and the fibers incorporated into this particular product. So we have a complete line. I didn't want to go into great detail, but we have a unique offering to contractors that do moderate to larger scale projects, and we're going to show you a 30-second video of that right now. So if you would, play the video.
All CustomTech levelers offer superior handling and outstanding flow retention for precise placement. These superfluid formulas can be barrel mixed or pumped to scale for applications of all sizes. CustomTech offers a job site silo program for use with barrels, batch mixing, or inline pumps. Premium quality CustomTech subfloor preparation systems can be used under vinyl, wood, rubber, carpet, tile, and any other floor covering.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that information.
Excellent. Well, we appreciate it, and let us know how we can be of support at any time.
Of course. Okay, audience. In your bottom left screen, you'll see the Q&A tab, and all you have to do is click on New Question and type it in and submit it, and Will can answer any questions you have about subfloor preparation and the CustomTech product line. Will, I do have a question ready for you now. How can the standards get contractors paid for floor prep?
Well, during submittals of your bid and your estimate, you can include the ASTM F710, the ANSI standards if you're providing tile installations, the NWFA's installation guide, and obviously you can include position statement 6, or you can excerpt some of the language from that. And that will help establish the fact that before we arrive, the concrete or the substrate needs to meet these flatness tolerances, and if they aren't, they have to be corrected. So that's an acceptable contract document. It should be signed, it should be accepted, and once it does, it goes into the project's legal side. It becomes law to the project, and then we go to our pre-con meetings and we reference those standards, and we have that conversation that before we start, we need the substrates to meet these tolerances, so that when we get there, and if they don't, which they probably won't, at least in some of the areas, then we can have the conversation about this is a repair, it is not a preparation effort, so this requires an additional scope of work and will require a change order or an additional contract to perform that repair. And that's how you can get paid. Do we have any other questions?
Sorry, I was muted. So when did Custom launch CustomTech?
Well, we launched it 7 years ago, but we've been working on levelers and prep materials for many, many years. And before we launched the brand for 3 or 4 years, we were actually already developing the materials and field trialing them with our Platinum Advisors groups and manipulating the formulations. So while it's been on the market for several years, really it's been in development and works entirely in about 10 years. It's in its entirety.
Okay. Do the warranty programs cover the floor as well as surface prep materials?
That's a good question. So if you were to use our CustomTech primer and self-leveling underlayment, and you were to experience an issue on a project, our warranty covers not just our materials, but also covers any finished materials above it and the labor to remove and repair or replace. So we understand that adhesives may be used with certain floor finishes, so we cover all of that cost in our warranties. Yes.
Wow, that's pretty extensive. So if there were any contractors who are interested in getting involved in your Platinum Advisors group, is that something they could talk to you about, or is that a closed group at this point?
No, absolutely. They can talk to us about that. We have an 800 number that they can call, or they can talk to their local CustomTech distributor and get a hold of one of our local sales reps, and they can get them involved as part of the Platinum Advisors group, which there are some great benefits as well.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. Is there anything else that you would like to share about custom building products or CustomTech?
We've got a slide up there. It shows a handshake. That's really all it's about. The company's not interested in selling products. We're only interested in being a good partner and having partners out there. So that's our goal, is to be a partner. And that means not just delivering products that work on the job day in and day out, but also delivering that support. We have over 50 people out in the field, and they do this every day, and they have for years. So that is our goal, top down, is to be that partner, whether it's with the architect, the engineer, or out there with the contractor, and working between the two to ensure things go as smooth and as easy as possible during the installation, and then obviously we stand behind it once it's done. So, if you're interested in being a partner with Custom Building Products using the CustomTech product line, give us a call on our 800 number. It's 800-272-8786. And you can find that on our website at custombuildingproducts.com and or customtechflooring.com.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing that contact info.
Excellent.
Well, I can wrap up now. So, Will, on behalf of FCICA, thank you so much for presenting today's webinar, sponsored by CustomTech. There was a lot of great information in there about subfloor preparation, so I think our audience got a lot out of this.
Awesome. Hopefully everybody's out there busy. I know most are, so we hope your projects go well, and we look forward to seeing you all in the future. And thank you, FCICA, for allowing us to present today. We appreciate that.
Oh, of course. We appreciate you joining us. Any Sims on the line can now navigate to your Submit Credit tab on the lower left part of your screen. You'll be asked to complete a feedback survey, and then you'll receive your credit. You do have to be signed into the education platform for this feature to work. So if you put in your name and email when you come into the webinar, that's not the same as signing in. So if the Submit Credit isn't working, back out to the main platform, get logged in, come back to the webinar, and you'll be able to get that credit. If you have any issues, please let me know. We're always looking to improve this. Thanks so much for joining us today, and have a fantastic rest of your day and a great weekend.